Commander Jake Morrison stood at the big window of his ship and looked out at the stars. The USS Horizon had been flying through space for 18 months now. It was Earth's newest ship, built for exploring faraway places and finding new worlds where people could live. Jake had been captain of ships for 12 years, but this was his first time going so far from home. The ship was not very big compared to the huge military ships that Earth had built. The Horizon was made for science and exploration. It had labs for studying new planets and animals. It had rooms for families who wanted to start new lives on distant worlds. Jake's crew of 45 people were all excited about reaching their new home in the Kepler system. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat at her station working on the radio equipment. She was 26 years old and very good at her job. Amy had joined Earth's space program because she loved talking to people from other worlds. So far on this trip, they had only heard empty space, but Amy never stopped listening. Jake walked over to check on his crew. Lieutenant Ben Harper was watching the ship's weapon systems. Even though the Horizon was built for peace, Earth always put some basic weapons on their ships. Ben was a quiet man who had served on 3 different ships before this one. He never talked much, but Jake trusted him completely. Dr. Lisa Park was in the medical bay getting ready for their arrival at the new planet. She had packed medicine and equipment to help the colonists stay healthy. Lisa was one of the smartest people Jake had ever met. She could fix almost any injury and knew more about alien diseases than anyone else on the ship. The ship's engineer was Chief Tony Rodriguez. He had been working on spaceships since he was 18 years old. Tony could fix anything that broke and always found ways to make the ship run better. He loved machines more than most people loved their families. Jake was thinking about the new planet when Amy suddenly turned around in her chair. Her face looked worried and excited at the same time. She had her hand on her ear, listening to something through her headphones. "Captain Morrison, you need to hear this," Amy said in a quiet voice. Jake walked quickly to Amy's station. She pressed some buttons and a strange voice filled the bridge. The voice was speaking words that Jake could understand, but the accent was very different. It sounded like someone trying to speak English when English was not their first language. "This is Captain Zara Val 9 of the hegemony research vessel Stellar Wind. We are under attack by the Vorthan Empire. Our escort has been destroyed. Coordinates follow. Any vessels in range, please assist. We have civilians aboard, including younglings." The message repeated 3 times and then stopped. Amy looked at Jake with wide eyes. This was the first time they had ever heard from aliens who were in trouble. Jake knew about the hegemony from his training on Earth. They were a group of peaceful alien races who worked together to explore space and share knowledge. Earth had been trying to become friends with them for many years, but the hegemony thought humans were too simple and not advanced enough to join their group. The Vorthans were different. They were a race of warrior aliens who conquered other planets and made slaves of the people living there. Earth's government had warned all ship captains to stay away from Vorthan space and never fight them directly. "Amy, how far away are they?" Jake asked. Amy checked her computer screen. "The signal is coming from a place about 3 hours away. If we go at top speed." The message was sent about 20 minutes ago, so they might still be alive. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. These people had signed up to explore new worlds and start peaceful colonies. They had not signed up to fight in a war between aliens. But Jake also knew that leaving innocent people to die was not something he could live with. "Ben, what kind of weapons do we have?" Jake asked his weapons officer. Ben looked uncomfortable. "Sir, we have basic laser cannons and some small missiles. The Horizon was never meant to fight real warships. Our weapons are just for defending against pirates or small attackers." Jake nodded. He had expected that answer, but he had to ask anyway. The Horizon was not a fighting ship. It was built to carry families and scientists to new homes among the Hern. Stars. Amy, can you send a message back to Earth Command? Jake asked. Yes, sir. It will take about 4 hours for the message to reach Earth and another 4 hours for them to send a reply. By then it will be too late to help those aliens. Jake walked back to the big window and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, people were dying and calling for help. Earth had always taught its people to help others when they could. But Earth had also taught them to be careful and not take unnecessary risks. Lieutenant Harper spoke up from his station. Captain, I've been reading about the Vorthons in our computer files. Their warships are much bigger and stronger than anything Earth has ever built. If we go to help those aliens, we might not come back. Jake knew Ben was right. The Vorthons had been conquering planets for hundreds of years. Their technology was advanced, and their ships were designed only for war. The Horizon would be like a small boat fighting against a giant shark. But Jake also thought about the families on the alien ship. The message had mentioned younglings, which probably meant children. Could he really fly away and let children die just to keep his own crew safe? Amy, plot a course for those coordinates, Jake said finally, and send an emergency message to Earth Command. Tell them we're responding to a distress call, and we need immediate backup. Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. Course plotted, Captain. Message sent to Earth. Jake pressed the button for the ship's intercom system. His voice would now be heard in every room on the Horizon. All hands, this is the captain. We have received a distress call from a civilian ship under attack. We are changing course to provide assistance. I want everyone to understand that we may be flying into danger. Anyone who wishes to leave the ship in an escape pod may do so. You have 60 seconds to decide. Jake waited and watched his crew. No one moved toward the escape pods. Amy kept working at her station. Ben checked his weapons one more time. Dr. Park came onto the bridge and took her emergency station. Chief Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom saying the engines were ready for maximum speed. All right then, Jake said. Take us there, Amy. Full speed. The USS Horizon turned toward the coordinates in the alien distress call and jumped to its fastest speed. Behind them, a special beacon hidden deep in the ship began sending out a signal that only other Earthships could detect. It was an emergency. Call that would bring help, but Jake did not know how much help would come or if it would arrive in time. As the stars streaked past the windows, Jake hoped he was making the right choice. In a few hours, they would find out if humanity was ready to stand up to the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. 3 hours later, the USS Horizon dropped out of its fastest speed and entered normal space near the coordinates from the distress call. What Jake Morrison saw through his ship's windows made his stomach feel sick. 3 enormous alien warships floated in space around a much smaller vessel that was clearly dying. The huge ships were dark gray, with red markings painted on their sides. Each one was at least 6 times longer than the Horizon, and covered with weapon ports that glowed with dangerous energy. The smaller ship in the middle was leaking air and pieces of metal into space. Jake could see holes burned through its hull by energy weapons. Small fires were still burning inside some of the damaged sections. This had to be the Hegemony research ship that had called for help. My God, whispered Dr. Park as she looked at the scene. Those ships are massive. Lieutenant Harper was studying his screens with a worried expression. Captain, I'm reading. The signatures of those warships. They're Vorthon battle cruisers. Each one has enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Amy was working at her communication station when she suddenly straightened up. Sir, we're being contacted by one of the Vorthon ships. Jake took a deep breath. Put it on the main screen. The front window of the bridge was replaced by the image of an alien creature that looked like a giant lizard. Its skin was covered in dark red scales, and its eyes were the color of burning coal. Sharp teeth filled its mouth, and Jake could see intelligence and cruelty in those terrible eyes. The creature wore what looked like a military uniform covered in medals and rank symbols. When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh like rocks grinding together. Human vessel, I am General Krex of the Vorthan Imperial Navy. You will turn around and leave this area immediately. This sector now belongs to the Vorthan Empire. Jake stood up straighter and looked directly at the alien general. General Krex, we are responding to a distress call from a civilian research vessel. We request that you cease your attack and allow us to provide humanitarian assistance. General Krex made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not a pleasant sound. Humanitarian assistance? You pilot one small exploration ship against 3 battle cruisers. Your species builds toys, not warships. We have studied human technology and found it primitive and weak. The alien general leaned closer to his camera. You humans claim to be a peaceful race. You send only civilian ships into space. You have no military worth our concern. Leave now before we demonstrate the price of interfering with Vorthan business. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. General, there are innocent civilians on that ship, including children. Surely even warriors like yourselves recognize the difference between combatants and non-combatants. The only thing I recognize is strength, Krex replied. And you have none. You have 30 seconds to begin your retreat, or we will add your debris to theirs. The communication ended, and the screen went black. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Every face showed the same mixture of fear and determination. Ben Harper spoke first. Captain, I've completed my analysis of those ships. Each battle cruiser has shield generators that are 10 times more powerful than ours. Their main weapons could cut through our hull like it was made of paper. If they all fire at once, we won't last more than a minute. Amy added her own bad news. I'm still getting weak signals from the hegemony ship. There are definitely survivors over there, but their life support systems are failing. They have maybe an hour before the ship becomes completely uninhabitable. Jake walked to his captain's chair and sat down heavily. Every option he could think of led to disaster. If he tried to fight, his ship and crew would be destroyed in seconds. If he ran away, the innocent aliens would die, and Earth would look like cowards to the entire galaxy. What about our message to Earth Command? Jake asked Amy. Still no reply. Sir? Even if they sent help immediately after getting our message, the earliest any ships could arrive would be 6 hours from now. Dr. Park moved closer to Jake's chair. Captain, I know this isn't my area, but couldn't we try to negotiate? Maybe offer to trade something for the lives of those civilians? Ben shook his head. Doc, the Vorthans don't negotiate. They take what they want and destroy everything else. It's how they've conquered half the galaxy. Jake stared out at the dying alien ship. He could imagine families huddled in the remaining safe sections, parents holding their children and waiting for death to come. The hegemony had never been particularly friendly to humans, always treating Earth like a backward planet full of primitive people. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was that innocent people were dying. Amy, open a channel to the hegemony. Ship, Jake ordered. After a moment, a weak voice came through the speakers. It belonged to an alien, but spoke in the common galactic language that Jake had learned during his training. This is Captain Zara Vel 9 of the research vessel Stellar. Wind, who is this? Captain Vel 9, this is Commander Morrison of the Earthship Horizon. We received your distress call and came to help. There was a long pause before the alien captain replied. Commander Morrison, I am grateful for your courage, but you must leave immediately. The Vorthans will destroy you without hesitation. Human. Ships are not equipped for this kind of battle. How many people do you have aboard your ship? Jake asked. 47 researchers and their families. 12 of them are younglings under the age of maturity. Our ship is dying, Commander. Our life support will fail within the hour. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. 47 lives, including 12 children. He opened his eyes and made his decision. Captain Vel 9, we're going to try to get you out of there. Prepare your people for emergency evacuation. Commander, that's impossible. The Vorthans won't allow it, and your ship cannot fight theirs. Jake stood up and walked to the communication console. Captain, you let me worry about the Vorthans. Amy, cut that channel and get me General Krex again. The ugly face of the Vorthan general appeared on screen again. This time he looked annoyed and impatient. Human, your 30 seconds ended several minutes ago. Why are you still here? General. Krex, I'm prepared to offer you a deal, Jake said. Let us evacuate the civilians from that ship, and we'll leave peacefully. You can have their vessel and whatever technology is aboard. Krex's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. You are in no position to make deals, human. You have nothing we want and nothing we fear. Watch now as we finish what we started. The general gave an order in his own language, and one of the battlecruisers fired a massive energy beam at the damaged hegemony ship. The beam cut through the smaller vessel's hull like a knife through soft bread. Explosions began erupting throughout the dying ship. You see? Krex said, looking back at Jake. This is what happens to those who defy the Vorthan Empire. Your turn is next, human. Jake felt his hands tighten into fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. Ben, charge all weapons. Amy, send another priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we are engaging hostile forces and need immediate military assistance. Ben looked up from his console. Sir, our weapons are charged, but they won't even scratch those ships' shields. I know, Ben, but we're not going down without a fight. Jake pressed the ship-wide intercom button again. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage enemy forces that vastly outgun us. Anyone who wants to evacuate to the escape pods has 60 seconds. Jake waited and watched. Once again, no one moved toward the escape pods. His crew had made their choice. Amy, activate the emergency beacon, Jake ordered quietly. Full power. Amy's fingers moved over her controls. Deep in the ship's hull, a hidden transmitter began broadcasting a special signal on frequencies that only Earth's military knew how to detect. It was a call for help that would travel faster than light across the galaxy. General Krex, Jake said, opening the channel one more time. This is your final warning. Cease your attack on civilians or face the consequences. The Vorthan general's eyes glowed with amusement. Consequences? From you? Fire all weapons. Destroy the human ship. 3 battlecruisers turned their massive guns toward the tiny USS Horizon and prepared to fire. The first blast from the Vorthan battlecruisers hit the USS Horizon like a hammer striking glass. The ship's shields flashed bright blue and then immediately began to fail. Sparks flew from control panels all across the bridge, and the lights flickered on and off. Shields down to 30%, Ben Harper called out as he tried to keep the weapon systems working. Hull damage on decks 4 and 5. Jake gripped his captain's chair as another massive energy beam struck his ship. This time, the blast went right through the weakened shields and burned a hole through the outer hull. Emergency alarms began wailing throughout the ship. Life support failing in Section 7. Dr. Park reported from her emergency station. I'm reading 15 injured crew members. Amy was still trying to send messages to Earth when her console. exploded in a shower of sparks. She fell backward, but quickly moved to a backup station. Communications are damaged, but still working. No response from Earth Command. The USS Horizon fired back with its small laser cannons and missiles, but the weapons had no effect on the massive Vorthan ships. The energy beams just bounced off their shields like raindrops hitting a window. Jake watched in frustration as his crew fought bravely against an enemy they could not possibly defeat. General Krex appeared on the main screen again. His reptilian face showed cruel satisfaction as he watched the human ship slowly being destroyed. This is what happens when primitive species interfere with their betters. Your ship will make an interesting addition to our trophy collection. A third blast struck the horizon, and this time the ship's main engine began to smoke. Chief Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom with barely controlled panic. "Captain, I'm losing power in the main drive. We can't take much more of this." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. These good people had followed him into this hopeless battle, and now they were going to die because of his decision. He had wanted to save the innocent aliens on the research ship, but instead he had just given the Vorthans more victims. Another energy beam struck the ship, and the artificial gravity flickered. Jake felt himself floating for a moment before the gravity came back on and dropped him hard into his chair. Blood was running down Amy's face from a cut on her forehead, but she kept working at her station. "Ben, how long can we last?" Jake asked. Ben looked at his damage reports with a grim expression. "Maybe 2 more hits, Captain. After that, the ship will break apart." Jake closed his eyes for a moment and thought about his crew and the alien families. They had tried to save. At least they had tried to do the right thing. That had to count for something. That was when space itself seemed to tear open like fabric being ripped apart. The first ship that emerged from the dimensional rift was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was enormous, at least 3 times longer than the largest Vorthan battlecruiser. Its hull was painted black as the space between stars and covered with weapon ports that glowed with threatening energy. Then another ship appeared, and another dot within moments. Jake was staring at a full battle fleet. 12 massive warships that made the Vorthan vessels look like toys. 30 smaller cruisers that were still larger than anything the Vorthans had brought. Over 100 smaller ships that moved with perfect coordination, like a school of deadly fish. At the center of this incredible fleet was the largest ship Jake had ever imagined. It was over 4 kilometers long and bristled with more weapons than some planets had for their entire defense. Along its hull were the words "U is Terra's Wrath" in letters, tall enough to be seen from space. Amy stared at her instruments with disbelief. "Captain, I'm reading over 150 ships. They're all broadcasting Earth identification codes." Jake could barely speak. Earth ships? But where did they come from? Earth doesn't have ships like that. On the main screen, General Krex's confident expression had changed to something that looked like fear. The Vorthan general was staring at the human fleet with the same shock that Jake felt. A new voice came over the communication system. It was clearly human, but carried an authority that made Jake straighten up automatically. "This is Admiral Lisa Stone of the United Earth Defense Force. All Vorthan vessels will cease fire immediately and prepare to be boarded." General Krex found his voice again, but it was not as strong as before. "This is impossible. Human technology is primitive. Your species has no military fleet. Our intelligence reports show only civilian exploration ships." Admiral Stone's laugh was cold and dangerous. "General, your intelligence reports show exactly what we wanted you to see. You have exactly 30 seconds to surrender before we demonstrate why Earth was never invited to join the peaceful galactic community." Jake watched as the massive human warships moved into attack positions around the Vorthan battlecruisers. Weapon ports opened along the hulls of the Earth ships, and energy began building up inside them. The space around the fleet started to glow, with barely contained power. "Impossible," General Krex repeated. "The Galactic Council assured us that humans were a weak species with no military capabilities." "General," Admiral Stone replied, "the Galactic Council knows exactly what we've chosen to show them. Earth learned long ago that the galaxy is full of species like yours. We've been preparing for this day for over 200 years. 20 seconds. The Vorthan general looked around at his 3 battlecruisers, which had seemed so powerful just minutes ago. Now they were surrounded by a fleet that could destroy them without effort. But Krex was a career military officer who had conquered dozens of worlds. His pride would not let him surrender to a species he had been taught to consider inferior. "All ships, open fire," Krex ordered. "Show these humans the power of the Vorthan Empire." The 3 battlecruisers turned their weapons away from the damaged USS Horizon and fired everything they had at the Earth fleet. Massive energy beams and nuclear missiles streaked through space toward the black warships Jake expected to see. The human ships destroyed, or at least damaged by the Vorthan attack. Instead, he watched in amazement as protective barriers around the Earth. Ships simply absorbed the enemy fire like it was nothing more than a gentle breeze. "Admiral," Stone's voice came over the communication system again, and this time it was filled with deadly calm. "You were warned, General. All ships, you are free to engage. Show them what humans do to those who threaten innocent civilians." What happened next would later be called the 30-second War throughout the galaxy. The human fleet did not just return fire. They unleashed weapons that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. Gravitational beams that crushed sections of Vorthan ships like an invisible giant hand. Energy weapons that cut through the strongest armor like it was made of paper. Kinetic projectiles that moved so fast they seemed to bend space around them. The first Vorthan battlecruiser was completely destroyed in under 10 seconds. Its debris field spread out in a glittering cloud that reflected the light from the other ship's weapons. The second battlecruiser tried to escape, but was caught by some kind of tractor beam that compressed its hull until it collapsed in on itself. "General." Krex's flagship lasted the longest, but even it could not withstand the focused fire of the Earth fleet. A beam of pure energy punched through the ship's bridge, and the general's final transmission was cut off in the middle of a scream. Jake sat in his damaged captain's chair and watched the destruction with a mixture of awe and terror. In less than 30 seconds, 3 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy had been completely destroyed by human technology that he had never known existed. The communication system crackled to life again, and Admiral Stone's voice was much gentler now. "USS Horizon, this is Admiral Stone. Report your status." Jake managed to find his voice. "Admiral, this is Commander Morrison. We have hull damage and casualties, but the ship is still operational. Thank you for the rescue. Commander, you and your crew showed remarkable courage today. We're dispatching repair ships to assist you and medical teams for your wounded. Well done." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at the human fleet with the same amazement he felt. Annie was shaking her head in disbelief. Ben was studying his instruments like he couldn't trust what they were telling him. "Admiral," Jake said, "I have to ask, where did these ships come from? Earth Space Command never told us about any military fleet." Admiral Stone was quiet for a moment before answering. "Commander, what you've seen today is classified at the highest levels. Earth has been building this fleet in secret for over 2 centuries. We knew that peaceful exploration would eventually bring us into contact with hostile species. We chose to be ready." Jake thought about all the times Earth's government had told other species that humans were peaceful explorers with no military ambitions. It had all been a carefully planned deception that had just saved countless lives. "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Now," Admiral Stone replied, "the galaxy learns that humanity is not the weak species they believed us to be. And species like the Vorthans learn that there are consequences for attacking innocent civilians." As rescue ships moved toward the damaged USS Horizon and the dying hegemony research vessel, Jake realized that everything had changed. Earth was no longer hiding its true strength from the galaxy. The secret was out, and there would be no going back. In the hours after the battle, Jake Morrison watched from his repaired bridge as human rescue teams worked to save the survivors from the hegemony research ship. The alien vessel was beyond repair, but the 47 researchers and their families were all alive thanks to the quick work of Earth's medical teams. Captain Zara Vel-9 had been brought aboard the USS Horizon for treatment. She was a tall, graceful being with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. Her species was called the Etherians, and they were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced scientific knowledge. Dr. Park had finished treating the alien captains. Injuries, and now Zara sat in the ship's medical bay speaking with Jake. Her voice was soft and musical, but Jake could hear the confusion in her words. "Commander Morrison, I must ask you something that troubles me greatly," Zara said. "The Galactic Council has always believed that humans were a peaceful species with limited technology. How is it possible that Earth possesses such powerful warships?" Jake sat down across from the alien captain. He had been wondering the same thing since Admiral Stone's fleet had appeared. "Captain Vel-9, I'm as surprised as you are. Until today, I had no idea that Earth had ships like that." Zara's silver eyes studied Jake's face carefully. "You truly did not know? Then how many humans are aware of this secret fleet?" "I honestly don't know," Jake replied. "But I'm starting to think that Earth's government has been keeping a lot of secrets from everyone, including their own people." Amy Carter joined them in the medical bay. She had been monitoring communications between the human warships and had learned some interesting information. "Captain, I've been listening to the fleet communications. It sounds like Admiral Stone wants to speak with the Galactic Council about what happened here." Zara straightened up with concern. "The Council will not believe this. For over 50 years, human ambassadors have assured us that Earth has no military ambitions. They have shown us only civilian exploration ships and research stations." Jake thought about all the times Earth's representatives had met with alien species. Every ship they had sent into space had been clearly marked as a civilian vessel. Every human ambassador had spoken about peace and scientific cooperation. Had it all been an elaborate lie? Chief Rodriguez entered the medical bay with a data pad in his hands. "Captain, I've been going over the technical specifications that Admiral Stone's people shared with us. Sir, the technology on those warships is at least 50 years ahead of anything I've ever seen." "What do you mean, Tony?" Jake asked. "The gravitational weapons, the energy shields, the faster-than-light communication systems. We're talking about technology that should be impossible according to everything I learned in engineering school. Earth has been developing this stuff in secret for decades." Dr. Park looked up from her medical equipment. "That would explain a lot of things. I always wondered why Earth's medical research seemed to advance so slowly compared to what I read in classified government reports. Maybe they've been holding back information in every field." Zara listened to this conversation with growing amazement. "Are you telling me that Earth has been deliberately hiding its true technological capabilities from the entire galaxy?" Jake nodded slowly. "It's starting to look that way. The question is why?" Amy had been monitoring the communication channels when she suddenly looked up with excitement. "Captain, Admiral Stone is requesting permission to come aboard. She wants to speak with you and Captain Vel-9 personally." 20 minutes later, Admiral Lisa Stone walked into the USS Horizon's conference room. She was a woman in her 50s, with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a black uniform covered with rank insignia that Jake didn't recognize. Everything about her spoke of authority and competence. "Commander Morrison, Captain Vel 9, Admiral Stone said as she sat down at the conference table. "I wanted to speak with both of you personally about what happened today and what it means for the future." Jake leaned forward. "Admiral, I have to ask, how long has Earth been building ships like yours?" Admiral Stone was quiet for a moment before answering. "The United Earth Defense Force was established in 2187, almost 200 years ago. The first prototype warship was completed in 2205. We've been building and improving our fleet ever since." Zara's voice was barely a whisper. 200 years. You've been preparing for war for 200 years. "Not preparing for war," Admiral Stone corrected. "Preparing for the galaxy we actually found when we first detected alien signals from space. Commander Morrison, what do you know about first contact protocols?" Jake thought about his training. "We were taught that Earth made peaceful contact with several alien species starting in 2156. The Etherians, the Crystalline Collective, the gas giant dwellers. All friendly contacts that led to trade and scientific exchange." Admiral Stone nodded. "That's what we wanted people to believe. The truth is that the first alien signals we detected were Vorthan military communications. We listened to them, planning the conquest of peaceful worlds. We learned about species like the Devourers, who eat other intelligent beings. We discovered that the galaxy is a much more dangerous place than anyone wanted to admit." "But the Galactic Council," Zara protested. "We are a peaceful alliance dedicated to scientific advancement and mutual cooperation." "Captain Vel 9, the Galactic Council is indeed peaceful," Admiral Stone agreed. "But you're peaceful because you lack the military strength to defend yourselves against species like the Vorthans. For 50 years, Earth has watched as aggressive empires conquered and enslaved peaceful worlds, while the Council could do nothing but send diplomatic protests." Jake was beginning to understand. "So Earth decided to build a military that could actually stop them." "Exactly. But we also realized that if the galaxy knew how powerful we were becoming, every aggressive species would unite against us before. We were ready, so we created a deception. We showed the galaxy exactly what they expected to see from a young species." Admiral Stone activated a holographic display that showed star charts of known space. Red areas marked territories controlled by aggressive species like the Vorthans. Blue areas showed the peaceful Galactic Council worlds. The red areas were much larger. "Look at this map," Admiral Stone said. "Over 60% of known space is controlled by militaristic empires that enslave or destroy any species they encounter. The peaceful Council worlds make up less than 30%. The remaining space is either unexplored or controlled by species too dangerous for anyone to approach." Zara stared at the display with growing horror. "I had no idea the situation was so bad. The Council always made it seem like the aggressive species were a minor problem. The Council leadership knows the truth, but they don't want to cause panic among their civilian populations. They've been hoping that diplomacy and economic pressure would eventually convince the warlike species to become more peaceful." Jake looked at the star chart and saw dozens of red areas that were growing larger each year. "How long before these aggressive empires start attacking Council worlds directly?" "According to our intelligence, the Vorthans were planning to invade hegemony space within the next 5 years. Other aggressive species have similar plans. The galaxy is heading toward a war that the peaceful species cannot win." Admiral Stone turned off the holographic display and looked directly at both Jake and Zara. "Today changed everything. The secret is out. Every species in the galaxy will soon know that Earth has been hiding a military force capable of stopping the aggressive empires. What happens now? Zara asked. Now we find out if the galaxy is ready for humanity to take on the role we've been preparing for. Earth is willing to defend peaceful species against military conquest, but only if they're willing to accept us as partners rather than primitive newcomers. Jake thought about the implications. You're talking about Earth becoming the military protector of the entire galaxy. I'm talking about Earth finally taking its place as the species capable of bringing peace to a galaxy that has known too much war. But first, we need to convince the Galactic Council that this is the right path forward. Admiral Stone stood up from the conference table. Captain Vel 9, I'm offering you and your people safe passage to any Council world you choose. In exchange, I ask that you carry a message to the Council leadership. Tell them that Earth is ready to discuss our role in galactic affairs. Zara looked thoughtful. Admiral, what you're proposing will fundamentally change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Council will need time to consider the implications. Time is something we may not have much of, Admiral Stone replied. Our intelligence indicates that several aggressive species are accelerating their expansion plans. The Vorthans were just the beginning. Jake listened to this conversation and realized that his simple rescue mission had triggered events that would reshape the entire galaxy. Earth was no longer a minor species begging for acceptance from more advanced civilizations. They were about to become the most powerful military force in known space. Admiral, Jake said, what about ships like the Horizon? Are we still going to be exploring and colonizing new worlds? Admiral Stone smiled for the first time since entering the room. Commander, exploration and colonization will be more important than ever. 6 months after the battle that revealed Earth's true military power, Ambassador Rick Coleman stood before the Galactic Council on their home world of Centaurus Prime. The massive chamber could hold representatives from over 300 different species, and today, every seat was filled. Rick was a career diplomat who had spent 15 years representing Earth in minor negotiations with alien species. Until 6 months ago, his job had been to convince other species that humanity was peaceful and deserved a chance to join the galactic community. Now everything had changed. The council chamber was built like a giant bowl with seats arranged in circles going up toward the ceiling. At the center was a platform where speakers could address the entire assembly. Rick walked to that platform, knowing that his words today would determine humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. Council Leader Zeph Prime floated above the assembly in a containment field filled with glowing gas. His species existed as pure energy and needed special equipment to interact with physical beings. When he spoke, his voice came from speakers placed throughout the chamber. Ambassador Coleman, Zeph Prime began, the Council has spent 6 months reviewing the reports from the Kepler incident. We have spoken with Captain Zara Vel 9 and her crew. We have examined the debris from the destroyed Vorthan ships. We have one primary question that must be answered. Rick straightened his shoulders and looked up at the energy being. I'm prepared to answer any questions the Council may have. Why did humanity hide its true military capabilities from the galactic community for over 50 years? The chamber fell completely silent. Representatives from hundreds of worlds waited to hear Rick's explanation for what many considered the greatest deception in galactic history. Rick had prepared for this question during his long flight to Centaurus Prime. Council Leader, Earth did not hide our capabilities out of aggression or deceit. We hid them out of necessity and wisdom. Murmurs began spreading through the chamber. Representative Vel Prime of the Hegemony leaned forward in her seat. Ambassador, please explain what you mean by necessity. Rick activated a holographic display that showed the same star charts Admiral Stone had shared months earlier. The red areas marking aggressive empires dominated the map. When Earth first detected artificial signals from space in 2156, we were excited to discover that we were not alone in the universe. But the first signals we intercepted were not peaceful greetings. The hologram changed to show communication intercepts from various aggressive species. We listened to the Vorthans planning the conquest of peaceful worlds. We detected signals from the Devourer fleets discussing which species would provide the best food sources. We learned about the Shadow Empire's slave markets and the Crystal Crusher's planet mining operations. Representative Marin of the Crystalline Collective spoke up with concern in her crystalline voice. Ambassador, are you saying that Earth's first contact with galactic civilization was with hostile species? Yes, Representative Marin. Earth learned that the galaxy contained species capable of great cruelty and violence. We also learned that peaceful species like yourselves lacked the military strength to defend against such threats. Rick changed the holographic display to show Earth's hidden military development over 2 centuries. Faced with this knowledge, Earth made a decision. We would develop the military capability necessary to defend peaceful species, but we would keep that capability secret until we were ready to use it effectively. Council Leader Zeef Prime's energy field pulsed with different colors as he considered this information. But surely you could have informed the Council of your concerns. We might have worked together to address these threats. Rick's expression became more serious. With respect, Council Leader, what could the peaceful Council worlds have done? Your combined fleets consist primarily of exploration and research vessels. The Galactic Council has never possessed the military strength to stop aggressive expansion by warlike species. Representative Kethmore of the warrior clans stood up angrily. His species were one of the few council members with any significant military capability. Human, are you suggesting that we are weak and incapable of defending ourselves? Representative Kethmore, I'm suggesting that peaceful species should not have to choose between maintaining their peaceful nature and protecting themselves from those who would destroy them. Earth chose to develop that protective capability so that species like yours wouldn't have to. The chamber erupted in voices as representatives argued among themselves. Some were angry at being called weak, while others were grateful that someone had been preparing to defend them. Rick waited patiently for order to be restored. Zeeph Prime's voice cut through the noise. Order. We will have order in this chamber. The voices gradually quieted down. Ambassador Coleman, the Council recognizes that your explanation has merit, but many of our members are concerned about Earth's true intentions. What does humanity want from the galactic community? Rick had hoped for this question. Council. Leader, Earth wants exactly what we have always said we wanted. We want to explore the galaxy, to learn from other species, to share knowledge, and build friendships among the stars. The only thing that has changed is our ability to protect those goals from those who would destroy them. Representative Vel Prime leaned forward again. But Ambassador, your military capabilities far exceed anything the galaxy has ever seen. The technology demonstrated in the Kepler incident suggests that Earth could conquer any world you chose to target. Representative Vel Prime, Earth has possessed this capability for over a century. If conquest had been our goal, we would have begun long ago. Instead, we used that time to study galactic civilization and identify the real threats to peace. Rick changed his holographic display to show the expansion patterns of aggressive empires over the past 50 years. While the Council was attempting diplomatic solutions, these empires conquered over 40 peaceful worlds. Over 2 billion sentient beings were enslaved or killed. Earth was preparing to prevent future tragedies like these. The chamber was quiet again as representatives studied the display. Many had not realized how much territory the aggressive empires had gained, while the Council pursued peaceful solutions. Representative Zara Velnine who had been rescued during the Kepler incident, stood to address the chamber. Council members, I was there when the Vorthans attacked our research vessel. I watched as they prepared to murder 47 civilians, including 12 children. The Galactic Council could not have saved us, but humanity did. She looked directly at Rick. Ambassador Coleman, I have one question for you. The Admiral Stone told me that Earth had been monitoring aggressive species for decades. Why did you wait until now to reveal your capabilities? Why not intervene sooner? Rick's answer was carefully prepared. Captain Vel 9, Earth needed to be certain that we could protect the entire galaxy, not just individual worlds. The aggressive empires have been expanding for centuries, and any premature action might have triggered a galaxy-wide war before we were ready to win it decisively. Council Leader Zeph Prime's energy field pulsed thoughtfully. Ambassador Coleman, assuming the Council accepts Earth's explanation for past actions, what role does humanity envision for itself in galactic affairs going forward? This was the most important question of all. Rick's answer would determine whether Earth became a partner or a conqueror in the eyes of the galaxy. Council Leader, Earth proposes a formal alliance between humanity and the peaceful Council worlds. We will provide military protection against aggressive expansion by warlike empires. In exchange, we ask for full Council membership and access to the scientific and cultural knowledge that member species share with each other. Representative Marin spoke up again. What guarantees do we have that Earth will not use its military superiority to dominate the Council? Rick smiled slightly. Representative Marin, Earth could have dominated the Council at any time during the past century. We chose partnership instead of domination then, and we choose it now. Our actions have always matched our words. The debate continued for several more hours. Some representatives remained suspicious of Earth's motives, while others were eager to accept human protection. Finally, Council Leader Zeph Prime called for a formal vote. The question before the Council is whether to grant full membership to Earth and accept their offer of military protection. All those in favor? Lights began appearing throughout the chamber as representatives voted. Rick watched nervously as the count progressed. Earth's entire future relationship with galactic civilization depended on this moment. The vote is unanimous, Zeph Prime announced. Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and responsibilities thereof. The chamber erupted in cheers from most representatives, though a few remained notably quiet. Rick felt relief washing over him as he realized that Earth had achieved what they had worked toward for decades. Council Leader Zeph Prime continued, speaking, Ambassador Coleman, the Council welcomes humanity as our newest member and accepts your offer of protection. We hope this marks the beginning of a new era of peace and prosperity for all civilized species. As Rick prepared to leave the chamber, Representative Vel Prime approached him with a final question.